Thank you for the introduction. As mentioned, we just had lunch, and I hope every one of you enjoyed the lunch, and I hope also that every one of you got enough coffee after lunch. That's always the thing, having the first presentation after lunch. So I thought I'd just remove all the template stuff and things like that and concentrate really on the content, so it's just white background, some images, and no disturbing stuff, which could lead to falling us asleep during the presentations. So let's start. As mentioned, it's about the easy web-based configuration tool for Icinga, about TKmon. I'm proud to announce version 1.4 today. It's powered by NETWAYS and Thomas Kren, so thanks at this point to NETWAYS for developing help of TKmon, and enjoy the next 50 minutes. To start off, I heard it's always a good idea to start with a diagram, so I thought, okay, let's have a little diagram in here. And your first thing to do is, what are your thoughts? What could those two bars represent? The topic is well known. It's about monitoring and about easy web-based configuration. Any ideas?
The one on the left, who uses some web-based configuration tool.
Okay.
The right, who doesn't. So the left who doesn't and the right who does.
So the thought is that on the left side, people who don't use a web-based configuration tool. On the right side, people who use a web-based configuration tool. So some thoughts are right, not 100%, but any other ideas? Lunch has been too good. Yeah. I want a second idea. I won't go over when I don't have a second idea. So, yeah. Okay, not a good idea. So on the left side, task which can be done with a web-based configuration. On the right side, task which cannot be done with a web-based configuration. So maybe a third idea. Are we good? Things are three, I heard sometimes. Yeah?
Depending about Wi-Fi in this area.
The Wi-Fi in this area.
5% are not satisfied.
Oh, okay. So opinions about Wi-Fi here in the area. On the left side, people who are not so much satisfied, you meant, and on the right side, people who are very satisfied. Okay, it's another idea, but yeah, I think I have to help a little bit out here. So it's the amount of Linux knowledge you need when you want to do the configuration of normal Icinga and of TKmon. So most of you fall into this category. So you have deep knowledge with Icinga, with Linux and open source and stuff like that. So many of you won't have the need to use TKmon for yourself, for your own purposes. But it's a very good idea. You sure have colleagues at some companies. I heard it's still the case that some Windows-based systems are in place. So for those people who don't have the need to cope with Linux every day, they now have the possibility to use TKmon. And even now with the 1.4 release, we dropped this a little bit below, so you can nearly use TKmon without any Linux background. So what's the reason why I'm staying here today and talking to you about making monitoring easier for users? What's the story behind TKmon? Just imagine the following situation. You have a company, everything is running fine. You're selling products and you're getting money, and everything looks nice. And to do your business, you need to have servers, and as long as the servers are running fine, in this case it's a server from Thomas Kren, it turns out quite nice. And now the next slide is a thing which I didn't show to our sales guys before, so I hope no one of the sales guys is in here, that's good. Because although we give, of course, the best hardware ever, it might be the case that something breaks. And the question is, what will happen when something breaks? And the bad news is that often you do not know when something will break, and that was the starting point, how we came to the idea doing something in that area. So we had the following situation. We as a hardware vendor and also our customers had situations like that. They want to use wherever possible redundant components. So when there's some failure in place, for example here a failure of a single power supply, the server keeps on running because there's a second power supply in there and everything's fine. That's a nice idea and that's quite okay. But the thing is that it doesn't help you anything when you didn't get the idea that you have to watch out when something like that happens. So the next situation is the second power supply fails and then we have the same situation again. So what could be the answer? You know it, do some monitoring, for example, use Icinga or some other monitoring system and yeah, enjoy the time, and when something breaks, you as a system administrator get a notification and yeah, you can look out to exchange the failed power supply. But as Murphy never sleeps, you're on vacation. You're on vacation, emails are being sent, but you don't care for your company emails when you're on vacation. So you need some kind of a lifesaver when something like this happens, because you don't want to go back to your office when you're on vacation. So it would be a good idea when something like that breaks, and there are some hardware vendors out there, to do some kind of a CallHome, and so that the system itself knows it has two power supplies, and the vendor knows there are two power supplies, and so it's not really necessary that you as a system administrator put on the phone and place a call. So it would be nice when something like this could be sent directly back, and this was the thing that we were thinking about. And this is of course nice, but it's only nice for those people who know how to use Icinga and how to use Nagios and the monitoring stuff, and to be able to use these kind of things. But there are also users out there, and yeah, I've seen them, who don't have the need for Linux, who don't want to cope with it, they have other things to do. So there's the situation, what could they do? They also want to use the power of Icinga, so they need an easy web-based interface to configure all this stuff. And that was the starting point where we talked to NETWAYS, and the idea was born to develop TKmon, a web-based interface for the configuration of Icinga. Yeah, so the next question would be, what are the features? Are there any features? Are there many features? Yes, there are features, and yes, there are quite a lot of features, so I call it a feature ton. Just as a little warning to you for the following slides, so that you can get a good idea what things you can do with TKmon with a web-based interface and what things you cannot do. But as mentioned, a lot of stuff in there, and yeah, as we're also taking part each year at Linz at the marathon, but in a team, 4 people, not me myself running a whole marathon. It's a good idea to keep on a long distance and to set up high goals. So here it is. Here you see the web interface of TKmon, the starting point. And as you can see here on the left side, there are quite a lot of features here. I wouldn't say feature complete, but we're on the way. And the important thing is that the things that you really need are already in there. And of course, it's the open source monitoring conference here in Nuremberg. It's open source software. It's licensed under the GPL. You're free to use it and do whatever you want with it. I'll go through the main features in here. Most important, of course, the service status, the current state of all the services which are in place. We try to keep the interface very simple, so have all things with colors in there, so green for OK, and the other colors you know already from Icinga. Here we have the case that there is some warning for the updates, because there are updates available for the box where this TKmon is running. And you can also filter to see problems only or all messages in there. Next important thing is the configuration of host things. And this is the point where it comes to the thing that administrators of systems other like Linux would like to do too, not only to use the notification things, but also be able to configure new hosts and stuff like that. So here's the possibility to add new hosts. In this example, we are having 3 hosts here. You see already the number of configured services in there, and it's possible to configure additional services. And yeah, as I also want to show some new features, because maybe anybody of you has already used and tested TKmon. Yeah, that's a good question. Has anybody of you ever tested TKmon so far? Okay, for the camera, I can see no hand, but I'm not sure if it's the lunch or if that's the fact that it's a rather new software. Maybe another question: who of you is awake? Okay, so I think it's the latter case. Okay, so I assume that most of you will have heard about TKmon for the first time by the conference program. But anyway, we are having, since today, version 1.4, one major upgrade, or it's only minor upgrade, but it's a major feature, is when you configure a host. It's now possible to configure also parent hosts, so that you have the dependencies in there. So here's the bright, shiny, big new button on there for the parent host feature. I think for Maris it hasn't been that big deal to implement it, but it's a very important thing for the end user. So when having this slide, I can also show the things that you can configure on there. So you have the host name, you have the alias, IP address, possibility to configure a parent host, and other things like serial number, operating system, and if the system has a remote management interface, you can configure the IPMI address, IPMI user and password. And maybe some of you remember 2 years ago I had a talk about the IPMI plugin that we have developed. I want to say it again at this place. When you configure IPMI users for monitoring, always remember to give them only user privileges, so that in the case that somebody would hack the system and he would have access to some of these passwords, he wouldn't be able to shut down all your servers. So remember that. Yeah, that's the new feature for the host stuff. Yeah, when it comes down to the services, we see the possibility to configure services here. And on the next slide, we see how it looks like when somebody edits the service. In this case, it's just an IPMI check. So the system, the single system has already the IPMI IP, username and password of the host configuration. So there's no need to configure any further stuff on this page. Just in case that you want to send notifications back to the vendor, you have the possibility here to say, okay, IPMI says that a fan is broken. I want to get the part via RMA automatically. You can use the switch here. Next feature on the left side in the menu bar is the contacts feature, where you configure your normal Icinga contacts. Just put add, name, and email address, and you're done. And when we continue with the Icinga stuff, we see the daemon status of Icinga. We could do a testing of the configuration, and we would also be able to restart Icinga here. And this is also good to know for you at this point in time. All the configuration that we do in the TKmon web interface here on the hosts and services side is done in an own directory, and it's included into the Icinga configuration. But you're of course free to do some additional configuration on the main Icinga configuration path, so you can keep it in 2 places. Things that the user of this web interface could change, and also features that the user could not change because it's on the normal configuration directory. And yeah, testing features in here, because if something breaks in the Icinga configuration, you get a clue where should look for the errors. Yeah, regarding the Icinga interface, it's possible to connect to the Icinga interface on here. It's not locked, so you have the Icinga admin user, the password you have configured for TKmon, and you're done. You can connect to it. Just in case that you do not want to have this feature, you have the possibility to change this configuration in the security part. You have the possibility to switch the Icinga access to off if you prefer that. And you also have the possibility to configure whether SSH access is possible or not. So just as you want for your user to be able to do. Yeah, other configuration stuff like mail configuration for notification, networking stuff with device, address, DNS, and time things. And here again, with 1.4, we have a little change because we noticed that in the 1.3 release, some little bug took in place. So when you had the configuration switched to DHCP and you started the system, you switched back to a static configuration. It saved the static configuration, but unfortunately, the DHCP client daemon kept on running. And so when the release time ran out, the daemon took again a DHCP address, and yeah, for sure when I tested this thing, the box was at my home office. I used remote access, and after 2 hours, suddenly I had no access anymore because yeah, the IP address has changed, port forwarding was wrong, and then I yeah, was knocked out. But luckily we had Marius in place here, and so he defeated this bug, and it's already solved in the 1.4 release. Yeah, other things, when we go down to the configuration, we'll see configuration stuff. You can look out for the configuration. It's a little longer page, as you can see on the bar on the right side. And also a very nice feature to come in the area of the finish of the feature marathon. We have the feature to back up and restore the whole configuration. So that's also an important thing. You can do all your configuration, back it up in a file, try a few things. I mean, you see, okay, it doesn't work. You restore the configuration back. You get a zip file where all the files are contained, and that's not encrypted. If you don't set a password, you can just look into the zip file and have all the information on there. And a very great functionality for users of Windows, again, a big new button on there, is the feature for the system updates. So we include the functionality to do update of the software via repositories for Debian or Ubuntu-based systems. So you just click on list pending updates here, tab here, and you get information which packages can be upgraded, and in the next step you can do the upgrade. So with that release, it's not necessary anymore to go to the command line to do some configuration stuff, or also some settings or security updates. So really straightforward. And yeah, at the very end, as mentioned before, the TKmon idea was born when we wanted to give a possibility to people to send hardware alerts. There's a point where you can configure the hardware alerting, and to ensure that the alert comes from a person on the internet who really bought a system, you have some kind of authentication key to ensure that not some of your neighbor or friends is saying 500 disks are broken at NETWAYS, and suddenly you have the track in front of your door. That maybe would be nice for you, but not for us. So we took this. So yeah, we have a lot of features. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, that's a good question. I just repeated. The question is, how could I install the update when I have the system running in an environment where I have no access to the internet? Yeah, the thing is, you need to have a way to provide the packages there. So the only possible way in this situation, or the suggested way in this situation, would be to set up a repository server on your own in this environment and copy the packages in there. The advantage is then when you have multiple systems, it's only necessary to upload the packages once on your local repository server. Not via the web front end, but it's a good idea, and that's the reason why I had some little note in there. And yeah, somehow in the future, because in about 20 minutes I have a slide about things you would like to have in the release. So, but I keep on starting the feature ideas. Change repository config online. I'm from the old school here. I have to write it down because otherwise I cannot concentrate on the talk anymore. I always think I don't have to forget, I don't have to forget, I don't have to forget, and then I forget to talk. So it's better that way. But it's a good idea. Good question here. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's another good question. The question is, what happens when an update requires some kind of user interaction, when some questions arise that you have to answer? Currently, it's the case that in this case, you'll get the notification here that this question has to be answered and that you have to solve it on the command line. So we concentrate on keeping the system in this environment for this purpose in a way that this isn't necessary to answer questions on the command line. But if you do further installations on the system below, and there are situations where you have to provide a password, for example, then you would have to resolve this issue today on the command line. But again, that's a good idea. Maybe it could help some people in the future. So possibility to answer update questions. Okay, so again, oh no, back again. The TKmon system itself you can run on any Linux distribution, but currently the update feature has the support for the Debian package format. So there's currently no support for YAML RPM based stuff, but as it's open source, we are open to patches, and we encourage everyone who has a use case in another situation to spread the ideas. And again, I'll take it down for the first moment. I hope I have enough sheets on here. But yeah, as it's rather new software, nobody of you knew it before when I answered the question correctly. So there's still room for new features and ideas. So another questions at this place before I try it the third time. Yeah, we're having a great set of features, as you see, and some ideas already what things could be enhanced. And yeah, as you are not from the sales division or people who just want to know how it works at the web front end, I have some more interesting slides for you behind the scenes, how it works under the hood. The first thing I want to show you is the service catalog. So how do I do it when I want to support new plugins within the web interface to be able to configure it via the web interface, because you have the need, for example, when you configure some service check to provide some parameters, some username, passwords or stuff like that. How can I do this? The answer is we have a service catalog in JSON format. You can just add JSON files into the service catalog directory, and it works like this. As you can see on top, you give the description of the service name and then provide the most important comments you need or parameters that you need. Those include the command name for a singer, the information whether or not you have arguments, so username, passwords, other arguments. They could be strings, that can be numbers. It's all documented in the source code of TKmon. I just left it out because otherwise the slide would be a little bit too long, or there would be too much slides here. And then you can add some more attributes like tags that you can type into the interface, and you get the hint that you could use this this service check, you could do labeling, and at this place you also see that it's possible to use multiple languages. So currently we have the support for English and German, and it's easily possible to add other languages as well. So you put on the description and read the check, where the command name for the check is defined for Icinga. Yeah, some additional possibilities, you could provide additional links where you can find background information of the plugin and some kind of documentation stuff with 1, 2, or 3 paragraphs for short user information, what this plugin does and what this check could do. So that's the first thing under the hood, and it's easily extensible. We also had started to add about 40 or 50 plugins to the service catalog. We didn't manage to release it today with that service catalog, but within 2 weeks or so there will be the 1.4.1 release with an enhanced service catalog, so that you can use it for really lots of service checks. So next thing is about the plugins that we are using inside. Of course, all the standard plugins that are around, but at some places we saw that we need some additional plugins. We cannot do all the monitoring that we want to do. So meanwhile, we have developed 5 hardware monitoring plugins, which we provide on our JIT server. So first of all, on the top left, IPMI hardware checks of the server system. In the middle, you see the plugin for LSI weight controllers with the new store seal I under the hood. So for those weight controllers, there's a new seal I available for about 6 months or so, and there hasn't been a plugin yet. So we've already developed a new plugin here together with the University of Applied Sciences in Hagenberg in Upper Austria. Also for AdaptTech, same thing, also a plugin for the monitoring stuff here. And as TKmon is also intended to give to the ability to use Icinga for Windows environments, we also tested to use those plugins via NS Client++ on Windows machines, and it works out quite well. We've also documented that within the wiki. Yeah, other things, plugin of GPUs from NVIDIA. When you're having, for example, some HPC clusters on there, there's some great amount of information that you can get out of those cards in regards of ECC errors or temperature information, or also fan information and stuff like that. So one of my colleagues has been working on GPU stuff before, and he implemented this plugin because he had the situation to have about 30 or so cards in the servers, and when you have ECC errors on there and you are computing wrong things, you want to know that as an HPC cluster administrator. And a very new area where we're just about to start, or where we released the first version some weeks ago, is the monitoring of hard drives themselves using the smart capabilities. So I think everybody of you has already come across the smart attributes of hard drives and solid state drives. And the good news is that there are lots of smart attributes, but the bad news is that all of these attributes are non-standard. So there are suggestions. There has been a suggestion for the standard, but I don't know for what reason, but unfortunately those suggestions didn't make it into the standard. And so it's the case that, for example, when you read something about raw read error rate and stuff like that, for the one vendor it could be that you have to watch it for the raw value, for the other vendor you have to watch out for the normalized smart value. And so we are starting here to provide the plugin with a little JSON database in the background. It's only a JSON file where we give a configuration for this model. You have to take care about those attributes, and you have to take care about the raw value or the normalized value, and also with information what are threshold values, when should be a warning, when should be a critical. Also a feature for which things it's nice to have, for example, some performance data like the temperature of the hard drives or stuff like that. But that's really a starting point where we are right now. We are trying to grab all the vendors because unfortunately the documentation of the meaning of the smart attributes from the vendors is also not the best. It's only documented for the Intel SSDs. There it's documented really in detail with every bit, and it's very easy to implement, and you know, okay, these are the thresholds, I have to watch out for that, media wear out indicator, and then I'm fine. But for the hard drives, we are working on that, and we're also looking forward on any recommendations or ideas or things that you have seen. So it's also at jit.thomas-grand.com, and you have also a mailing list set up, so always open to do to exchange information on there. So that's been the second part. The third part behind the scenes is about the repositories. We had already a question, how does this work? How could I do that? For the packages that we provide today, we have the situation that we have it based on Ubuntu LTS. So all the updates of Ubuntu are coming from their repository, and we've set up another repository containing add-on software that we need to run the system. So there are packages for TKmon, there are packages for Icinga 1.9 at minimum, because we need some of the features of the newer Icinga version compared to the one which is shipped with Ubuntu LTS. The plugins that I've mentioned, and also some third-party plugins which aren't available in Ubuntu normally. And for the wait stuff and things like that, also all the CLI tools that you might need there. So you have all the things in place. When you want to set up TKmon, just install Ubuntu LTS, add the repository here, and simply do an apt-get install TKmon, and you're done. So it's really that simple. Yeah, next topic behind the scenes regarding the CallHome service. How does it work when something breaks and you want to send out a notification? Just in case, like the thing we had at the beginning, one power supply fails, and we don't want to wait until the second one fails. So in this case, a notification is being sent out. The notification email is then encrypted via GPG with a public key. All components are open source, so it's easy for you to see which kind of information is transferred. There are things like serial number and error message and stuff like that. It's also documented in detail, so that you can see which things are transferred, in contrast to the things that you don't know which data goes around when you think about Prism. But here we tried to keep it very open, and we have been lucky because we released the thing, I think, 1 or 2 weeks before all the Prism stuff came out, and I was lucky to have all the information set up, which kind of information is being transferred, so you can look it up on the wiki. Yeah, the notification comes in there, and then the spare part is going on the way. So, attention again. Next question, new features. That's the thing that we already had. I already got some ideas, what things we could add, things that would be nice. And here again, I want to ask you, what are things that you think that would be valuable? What is your experience as an Icinga administrator, as a Nagios administrator? What are features that you need, that you are using on a daily basis? Because this is valuable information for us, which things that we should concentrate on when it comes to some more releases in the future. So, yeah, okay, the question is TKmon supporting distributed systems? Currently it's not supporting distributed systems, so it's a simple install on a box, but again, that's a thing that I just take a note. Okay, the question is TKmon, is it possible to use an API to add further hosts, services and stuff like that? Currently not, but again, that's a thing I can take down. Yes.
What about escalation, notification escalations?
Oh,
Business processes?
yeah, the question is, what about escalation processes and business processes? Currently, It's not in there, it's on my list now. So you see, well, we started it this year and worked hard on it to release it on Linux Tag in Berlin in May this year. We announced the release candidate there, had the announcement then in August, and now the 1.4 release. But it's really nice to hear that there are many ideas out there, what things we can add, and what are the features that you need. Some more ideas or features that you use on a daily basis when you think, for example, about our satellite systems or something like that. The question is, can it read an existing Nagios or Icinga configuration? Currently not, but a parser for that would also be a nice idea, to be able to switch from a current Nagios or Icinga to a new TKmon based installation. So read the configuration. Of Icinga and Nagios. I see if it keeps on running on that way, I can try to give a talk next year again with all the new features that we implemented. I'm curious. I have another slide on the next where we have two things that we are planning to do, and I would like to know if somebody of you is asking for that. So, any other ideas? Yeah, great question. Graphing. I write it down, but we'll have a little present on the next slide then maybe. Oh, great, you saved my day. Reporting, yeah. That's a thing I also take down. Some kind of databases? Yeah, for... yes, it's a little database behind it to store the important data configuration of the TKmon system itself. But most of the Icinga configuration is placed in the configuration files. But that would be another thing too. Maybe one thing, I thought that this question would come. If I go back a few slides and you watch it on the one of the screenshots, do you see something that would be nice not to have on there? Actually,
there's no grouping or something like that.
No grouping? It's nice to collect so many ideas. Yeah, I think I'll have to show it then. So going back, CallHome, we had this. New features. Yes, what do you want to do and what we are planning to have. There was the question about graphing. Yeah, we're thinking about it. We already have the plans to integrate PNP on there. Reason behind is that we want to be able to run the system really on devices where there isn't that much power need and not that much power of the system, so that you can use also hardware, smaller hardware for those kind of stuff. So we have on the roadmap to include PNP. And also one thing, and I'm a little bit surprised that nobody mentioned it, we're also looking on that to provide an easy way to give real certificates on the system, or to generate CSRs for that, so that they can be able to put on a valid certificate for the SSL encryption on there via the web interface, and not via going the command line way like it's necessary today. So this is also a thing. This also should show that it's very important for us to keep the system very secure and very safe. So we also looked in all the communication stuff. TKmon is communicating with Icinga. our local HTTP communication, and we have password set up on there, but those passwords are generated for each system. So when you install the package, you have an individual password which is only allowed to use this local kind of access. So we've really put a lot of effort into the thing to make this system really secure. And it's also not possible to use it only via HTTP without any encryption. So we forced the Apache configuration to only allow HTTPS and not HTTP to be on the safe side here, because the experience shows that things that they don't enforce are often not being done. And with this thing, we want to stay safe from the very beginning, and this helps a lot to don't get so many problems in the future. So as I'm already about, let me see, 40 minutes of the talk, and again, it's been lunch just right before, so I have again a question for you to guess. When you think of TKmon, what's your opinion? What do you think? How many watts are needed to run TKmon? We have 3 options here. 4 or 6. Okay, yeah. Yes, you're right. So for the first one, this is the monitor of our booth on there. It's about 20 watts. It's not the system. Second one is not this laptop. This is a little bit older, but the newer one that we have on the booth, it's about 14 watts. And TKmon, as shown us in this example, is running on an atom-based system, so you really can use small systems for that. I haven't tried it yet, running it on a Raspberry, but yeah, no experience yet. But for those things, you could use those devices which don't need much power. And here's really an advantage, because you can use a system where you don't have any fans, any hard drive spindles or stuff like that, so no moving parts. And that's always a good thing to have in a monitoring system, because you don't have the possibility that the fan fails because there's simply no fan in there. So yeah, you also need no really big cooling, because for those little watts, you can do it without any cooling. So when you think about what to choose to do monitoring, you have the 2 possibilities: to go with Icinga or to go with TKmon. You have some pluses and some minuses on each side. Both of them have a great monitoring, and the reason I have to admit is that TKmon has also great monitoring because it has got Icinga under the hood. So for that reason, it's not that difficult to be on the same side here. With Icinga, you have endless features, as we have seen and heard. And with TKmon, we have many features, but not endless yet, but we're working on that. With Icinga, you can use it for environments going from small to endless big. With TKmon, you can go from small to mid-size. Some of the really endless big environments, you simply miss features for that yet. And yeah, with Icinga, it's good to have some kind of command line knowledge in Linux system. With TKmon, it's nice to have knowledge how to use a web browser. So here, as mentioned, we have released version 1.4 today. There's some documentation which you can find at thomas-cohen.com/TKmon. We have a Git repository, we have wiki, mailing list, stuff like that. So always looking forward to get some feedback from your side. And if you want to try it out yourself, you could also take a chance and try to win one of these atom-based servers out there. Just come to our booth, one door next to here, and come to us, and maybe you're the lucky winner of one of those systems. So, any more questions yet?
Are you planning to add another backend?
Another backend? Okay, the question is, are we planning to add another backend instead of Icinga? Right now, we don't have any plans for that, so the idea is to keep it simple to configure Icinga. Of course, there would be the possibility to support also other systems like Xenos or Zabbix or Nagios or stuff like that, and for sure it's possible. And we're always open to input on that side, but not yet planned, but feature idea support for. And I have to say, I can't promise that you can fulfill each feature until next year, but maybe we'll try. Okay, yeah, another question? So the question is, how is the communication done under the hood from TKmon to Icinga? Is it status that from Icinga to the TKmon interface? So the notifications are simply set out by Icinga itself. We are going mostly the one way to do the configuration, put it to Icinga. The only thing that we can get back at this place is the status view, which we have on the slide here, which is done via local communication via the HTTP service with a new feature, and that's the thing where I have to ask Maris now. So I think I have to give the answer at the after the talk. So then when there are no other questions, one final thing for you to do. So now you know what's all about it, how you could use it, how easy it is to set up. So it would be really great for us if you could go out, try it, play with it, use TKmon, and if you have any feedback, we're always happy to get feedback from your side. We try to keep it really simple, providing a repository, just adding the Thomas Crane repository to your Ubuntu installation, do an apt-get install. So very easy to set up within a few minutes, play around it, use it, and send feedback to us. We really appreciate it. Also, thank you for all the input that you gave to me already. And hopefully we can add some new features in the next months. And yeah, let's get some interesting emails on the mailing list. So thank you. At that point, if you have any further questions, we are here today till the end of the conference. Thanks for joining this talk.